Hello, and welcome to the 2024 The League Fantasy Football Reviews. Um, I don't know how many of these I'm going to get through. I will say I have a very packed-in week before the season starts next Thursday, I want to say. I'm pretty sure it starts next Thursday on the 5th. So in Brazil. But I'm going to see how many of these I can get through. I might have some free time this weekend in Gainesville. Just don't ask me why. I have no idea why I'm going there. But Lauren's team's definitely going to be last because I have no idea what to make of that. Not doing Charlie, Eileen, or Andres till the end either because their teams are also kind of like joke mess teams that need some work to be done because those benches are diabolically empty, we'll say. So, yeah, leaving the joke teams to last because I have no idea what to make of them, and it's not worth my time trying to figure it out right now. As for this, I'm probably just gonna wing it. I don't really usually I have notes and everything. Yeah, all my notes in preparation went into the draft this year. Sorry guys, I don't have any notes for you. I don't have anything. Like, I'm kind of just going off, like, wing it, what I got. I don't know how long any of these videos will be. Usually I ramble on, though, so we'll see. But, yeah, I figured first video, I was going to start with Justin because I gave Justin such a high score last year. I kind of like the team this year. There's some things to go over, though. If nothing else, I hope you become a better fantasy player from watching these. And I hope they entertain you too, but more so I actually want you to become a better player. So yeah, we'll start with Justin. So, 19th pick. You saved your money kind of deep into the draft, kind of like me. There were a few of us. There was me, Brian, Robbie. We're kind of just sitting on the money. But I think, yeah, you went right after I took Jordan Mason. So you took Alvin Kamara, 19 overall. All right. So we'll do the good and the bad. The good, despite if we don't count the suspension last year, and he just kept that same pace that he had the whole season, he would have been a top 5 running back. He was the number 11 running back in fantasy, but he was a top 5 running back if we discount the suspension. So he catches a lot of passes. He caught 75 passes, which is a crazy number for a running back who led the league. I don't think he's going to get quite that much, but if I'm being honest, other than Olave, there's not a whole lot there with the Saints. So he'll probably get like 70 passes or so, and probably get his like 450, 500 yards, maybe a couple touchdowns. So that's the good. Here's the bad. He's 29. He had 0 runs over 20 yards last year. He was one of only 2 guys to do that. I forget who the other one is. It'll probably come in a later video when I remember. But he's just, all that explosion that I saw early in his career is kind of gone. He had this crazy acceleration I remember seeing when he would hit the holes, and it's just not, he still has the vision, but his body, like his lower body just can't make those decisive like movements anymore. And it's sad, but this is what happens with age. I mean, 29 years old, he's the same age as Todd Gurley, who's not even in the league. So he didn't even get 700 yards rushing last year. I think he'll get a little more, obviously, just purely on volume. So we're talking like 750, 800 yards, probably get around his 5 touchdowns again. Overall, I think 55 is a lot for him. I had him on my team last year. I paid 25 because everybody was scared of the suspension. And he's like, oh, he's old. And I'm kind of like, well, this is a Matthew Berry saying, so this is a quote from him. If efficiency is prince of fantasy points, then volume is king. So with Kamara, he's typically healthy, and he gets a lot of volume because the Saints aren't good. They're just not good. Their coach isn't good. The offense isn't good. Derek Carr's okay. He doesn't fit the offense very well. The defense isn't great. There's nothing. I don't know why they haven't started rebuilding. This is definitely a team that ought to be rebuilding, and they're not. They're just trying to maybe luck into the playoffs and lose, and I don't even think they're good enough to do that. All of that's to be said. All that being said, though, Kamara will get his. I mean, Jamal Williams is the ghost of Jamal Williams is there, I suppose, but they didn't really use him. He got one touchdown last year. So Kamara's going to get all the red zone targets. He's going to get the red zone carries. He's a rock solid top 10-ish running back. It's unexciting. I think 55 is a lot. But, running backs in our league went for a lot this year. So, I had him. Enjoy him. Plug him in. Don't worry about it. If you're really worried about him getting injured, I suppose you could pick up Jamal Williams. But I don't think if Kamara got hurt, Jamal Williams would be doing a whole lot anyway because the O-line's not good in New Orleans. So, yeah, that's a lot for Alvin Kamara. I would have preferred to paid more to get one of the star players, but, I don't knock it considering how desperate we are for running backs. Another player on my team last year, funny enough, and I think that's the same price, the same exact price that I paid for him last year, exactly $35. So, again, good versus bad. The good. I talked about for years that I thought Keenan Allen was the best route runner in football. Despite his season last year, you could see the slippage. I talked about Stephon Diggs being a top 5 route runner. I saw the slippage last year. All right, Devontae Adams is older, but right now, for the money, I think Devontae Adams is the best route runner in football. He consistently, unequivocally gets open. His ability to create separation and use body control and movement in the air to be able to get the ball is probably the best in the league right now. I suppose the best person at getting separation is Tyreek Hill, but that's all speed. If we're just going on basically the nuance of playing receiver, I think Devontae Adams is the best. And he's 32, but he's just incredible at it. So that's all the good. So why is he only $35 if he's so talented? Well, the bad is he's on the Raiders. The Raiders aren't good. I went through the funny Jimmy G, Aiden O'Connell mess that was last year, and it wasn't a good time. It was not a good time. He was borderline a top 10 receiver. He had 103 catches, 1,144 yards, 8 touchdowns. So good. That's the good. He was exactly 10th as a fantasy wide receiver. He helped me get to a championship game. But the peaks and valleys were really rough. I think they ought to be better with Antonio Pierce there. Basically what this comes down to, it's less about Adams. I think he'll get maybe 90 to 100 catches, maybe 1,100 to 1,200 yards, maybe 5 to 10 touchdowns. And those are all good stats. That's a top 10 to 15-ish receiver. But really what it comes down to is, can Gardner Minshew get him the ball? Gardner Minshew has been basically perfectly average his entire career. They don't really have a choice. If things fall apart and they have to go to Aiden O'Connell, that is bad for Devontae Adams. If things are going okay and they stick with Minshew, that's probably good for him. But they just have to feed him. They have to make it a point to give him the ball a lot. So I know they have Jacoby Myers. I know they drafted Brock Bowers. I know they have the second round pick tight end the year before Myers as well. I don't care. All those guys can go kick rocks. Devontae Adams is better by a lot. He ought to be on a team that's pushing for a championship, though. This team is probably not even pushing for 500. So, yeah, if things go bad fast, I don't know what's going to happen. But that's kind of the rub. That's why you got him at this price, because if he was on, say, the Chiefs or something, he'd be a top 3 wide receiver. So it makes sense. I like him. He was on my team. I'm queasy about building around him, though, but you paid him basically what he's worth. So, again, don't love it, don't hate it, but having gone through it, the peaks and valleys aren't fun. Next one, 50. Okay, so 50th pick, you got Tank Dell. You got Tank Dell for $11. That's pretty good. Pretty good deal. So, Tank Dell, last year, Lauren's team, rookie season, looked really good. Nico Collins gets hurt. He comes in. If I remember correctly, what is it? Yeah, he didn't play, like, the whole season, if I remember correctly. What is this? The Bears. Yeah, he broke his, like, fibula. And so he only played 11 games, but he set the franchise record on the Texans in 11 games, which isn't a whole lot. The Texans have only been around since, like, 2000, so not talking a lot of history. But Tank Dell's a good player. Tank Dell is going to do well. Getting him for $11 is good. You probably get, if he stays healthy, probably like 70 receptions, 950 yards, 6 touchdowns. It's hard because Dalton Schultz is at tight end. Joe Mixon is at running back. Stephon Diggs is now at wide receiver. Nico Collins is back at wide receiver. And then Tank Dell is here. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And as good as you think C.J. Stroud might be, unless C.J. Stroud is being MVP, dropping 40 to 50 tight end touchdowns, it's going to be really tough to spread the ball and keep everybody happy, especially because, quite frankly, Stephon Diggs is a diva receiver. So if he's not the number one, there's going to be problems in the locker room. I think Tank Dell's he's really talented. I think last year showed more than I thought he would be. I think getting him for $11. I think getting him for $11 is pretty good for you. I probably had him at like a $20 player, but I can understand why there's a discount on him just because it's tough. It's tough to figure out who's doing what in Houston right now because, like, frankly, I don't know if they're going to be this high-powered, high-flying offense. They might run the ball a lot with Mixon, if I'm being honest. Like, we're hoping C.J. Stroud's, like, I don't know, the second coming of Mahomes or something, and I'm just like, let's just have, like, a good second season. Let's just try and be, like, Justin Herbert, or just have, like, a solid season. Because the O-line's just okay. But, hey, $11, that's pretty good. I would take him on my team for that. So, after that, 21, Malik Neighbors. Man, you really got, like, a lot of boom or bust kind of stuff here. So, here's where we're kind of going off, and this is just preference. So, people will tell you how good Malik Neighbors is. I think he's excellent. I think the best draft prospects I've seen in the last, we'll say since Calvin Johnson, the best draft prospects, purely draft prospects, have been Odell Beckham Jr. and Jamar Chase. Those are the two. All right? I would say Marvin Harrison Jr. is right there, right? And then Neighbors is probably right behind those three. So Neighbors is really good, like really, really good. And there are times where you have like an Odell Beckham Jr. stuck with old Eli Manning doing incredible things. You have Devontae Adams last year with Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G doing incredible things. But it's super rare to find a young receiver do really well in a bad offense. All right, like no one really drafted the Texans last year until C.J. Stroud became a thing. So it can work out. It's proven it can work out. But, like, man, Daniel Jones is not good. So I don't know if he's had a 1,000-yard receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. And that might be 4 years ago. Yeah, I think that's 4 years ago. So, no, actually, yeah, no, that's, yeah, because the Rams won the, yeah, that's a while ago. Jesus. Okay, so, yeah, since then, Jones hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver. So, could Neighbors be the guy? I mean, he's the most talented one? Is Jones going to be able to get him the ball? I hope so. I think on talent, Neighbors is like on talent. Marvin Harrison Jr. is worth the 44. I would say Neighbors would be worth honestly around Devontae Adams, around 35. He's very talented, but the situation is worse than Adams. So we'll ballpark it and take the under. We'll take 80 reception. We'll say he gets 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's a good player. He's a good wide receiver 3. I think, again, you're taking other peaks and valleys, guy. You're taking, there's going to be great days where he gets free, he gets loose on, a Josh Gordon-esque, run or something, a short pass, crossing route. And there's going to be valley days where Jones doesn't get him the ball, and it's going to drive you absolutely bananas. So, I think it's good for the money. You're probably paying right around what he's worth. I guess push or shove. But, see, now we're starting to get into the territory where we're going to talk about, why we keep drafting receivers. So then, for 18, we took Calvin Ridley. This one, same kind of deal. Calvin's 29 now. He wasn't great in Jacksonville last year. He was suspended the entire year before that, so he's really rusty. He was paid a lot by the Titans. We don't know what really to make of the Titans too much. Brian Callahan was just the Bengals offensive coordinator, and now he's the head coach. So maybe they do a Joe Burrow-esque offense, which is secretly a Sean McVay offense, because Zach Taylor was the quarterback coach under Sean McVay. So that's really where it comes from. Another West Coast, high-flying offense. I'm kind of are we sure that's going to be a high-flying offense? I guess Mike Vrabel's gone. Derrick Henry's gone. I hope the O-line's healthy, but is Will Levis, he can throw it deep, but I don't know how accurate he is. Again, we're talking probably around Neighbors, 80 receptions, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. Good player, like him. He's a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. But I'm also this is my problem. All right, so we spent $35 on Devontae Adams. We spent $11 on Tank Dell. We spent $21 on Weak Neighbors, and we spent $18 on Calvin Ridley. We basically filled out the receiver room with a bunch of guys who are relatively around the same kind of thing. So, if Adams is the number 1 and Dell's the number 2, Neighbors and Ridley are around there. But you'll notice we still have not taken a running back 2. And, we're spending money on these receivers, and this is going to become a theme of this draft, which is something I noticed in this draft, which is part of the reason why I went handcuff heavy. There was a lot of groupthink in this draft, where everyone would just get one, we'll call it hero running back. So the draft strategy is hero running back. You get 1 star running back, and then you build out your receiver room, and then you just plug somebody in at wide running back 2 and hope for the best. And you can get away with that. That can work. Outliers can also work too, and it would have been nice to just see more outliers or more different team building than everyone kind of doing the same team building, because that kind of breeds redundancy, and it also breeds everyone kind of having the same esque team. So with this, you have no RB2. We're just drafting receivers for drafting receivers. I guess we filled out the starting receivers, but you got a bunch of starting receivers. You have a bunch of receivers, so which is fine. I like some of the receivers. The next guy was someone I nominated because I like him, but I don't know. I wish one of you would have tried to have gotten more depth at running back, because now we know there are some deals at the back end. And not to say, I could have gotten Ezekiel Elliott and, Devin Singletary and, what is it? James Conner, all those guys under $30, right? but like I want to get these good receivers to fill out my team. I mean, I guess you can do that, but it's gonna be really difficult for you to trade when everybody else kind of has the same team build. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of redundancy, and this is kind of why I picked Justin first, because I like the team. The team's good, but it's just like you kind of. Well, first we'll get there. There's other thoughts, but we're going. We got to get through this. This is already 20 minutes in. We're talking too much about theory and things. So next we got Ladd McConkey. I nominated him. He's the slot receiver for the Chargers. They're not going to throw a lot. I do like him. Maybe he's the number one. 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's a wide receiver 4. So, I mean, you have him as a wide receiver 5. So that's, I mean, good value, $3. You took Leyland's. You took Leyland's. You took the Michigan guy, who was also simultaneously Leyland's handcuff, Blake Corum. So, he's behind Kyron Williams. So he'll get some touches though. He'll probably get like 500 yards and then maybe like 5 touchdowns. But really, the power is if Kyron gets hurt, Blake Corum is something. We then took Keon Coleman for $6, who I guess you're hoping is the number 1 receiver in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis out. I'm pretty sure I also nominated him too. 800 yards, probably 5 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to get 1,000 yards. He's not anywhere near as good as Diggs. He can't get any sort of like... Keon Coleman was one of the choices that I did not like in the draft, if you can't tell. He's big, but he has no real route running ability, and he's also kind of like not very he's athletic, but he's not very fast. He just reminds me a lot of Calvin Benjamin, and I'm not really on board with that. So, which is funny because Josh Allen is like kind of reminds me of Cam Newton. But I mean, I guess he can be a good player. He's a rookie, so he's got upside, so he can turn into something. But, and then we spent $8 on Kyler Murray, who also, I think, was someone that I was in on that I really liked. He is Matthew Berry's ride or die this year. I think he's going to be like a top 5-ish quarterback. He looked really good towards the end of the season. He'll probably get... I think I put a bet on him because he's never had a season where he's been fully healthy, where he has had under 3,500 passing yards, and I think his range in Vegas right now for the season is 3,200, so I put the over. But, I'm thinking like 20 touchdowns, 35 to 3,700 passing yards, probably another like 400 rushing yards, and another 5 touchdowns. He'll be a good player. Like, I think he's going. I mean, I believe Matthew Berry. He's a ride or die for a reason. I think he'll be a top 5 quarterback. I think you got him for way better than Robbie spending $10 on Jordan Love or some of these other quarterbacks that were drafted. So I really like Howard Murray. I want him. So that's not bad. And then, that's fun. You took Gus Edwards for 15, so you need to get a running back. You went and got a running back. He fits the Greg Roman former Ravens offensive coordinator role, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh. So, yeah, you're kind of hoping for 800 yards, double-digit touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to get double-digit touchdowns. Like, that's asking for a lot, just because, like, I think the team will be good, but between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, I don't know if either of them can reasonably stay healthy. Like, they're always hurt. Not some of the time, always hurt. So he's not going to catch the ball either. So you're basically just, like, hoping for the rushing yards, which are going to be around, like, maybe, like, 60, 70 a game, and then falls into the end zone. So I think he'll be good. I mean, he's a running back with a pulse. I think he overpaid, if I'm being honest. I think he's probably... he's a running back with a pulse. I guess 15's fine. So, all right. So, I mean, after that, we took Mostert for 9. I liked Mostert. He led the league in touchdowns last year with 21. I don't think that's going to happen again. Sorry. Maybe, but probably not. 21 touchdowns is a lot. Like, a lot. I can't imagine, even if Achain is hurt, like Jalen Wright, there's so many people there in Miami. So, like him, think there's regression. It's baked into the price. Probably 700 yards, probably 8 touchdowns, a usable running back-ish. Great coaching, terrible offensive line. He's like a flex kind of running back, which is fine. He can start for you. $9. Any running back with a pulse. He was a top 5 running back last year. Maybe he's not even top 20 this year, but you know what? Running back with a pulse. So you got him at cost. Xavier Worthy, rookie kid out of Kansas City. I like him because he's fast, but I mean, Kansas City now, they just signed Juju Smith-Schuster today. They signed Marquise Brown. They still have Kadarius Toney. Rashee Rice hasn't been suspended yet. So Sky Moore's still there. Man, we're running out. Justin Watson, we're running out. There's a lot of receivers. So it's really fast. They used a first-round pick on him. I think I'll see some playtime. Not a whole lot of playtime, though. I can't imagine he climbs the depth chart that quickly. I mean, maybe he's the number 3 receiver, but you're kind of hoping he becomes the guy, and I'm not really sure he becomes the guy. So, 750 yards, 6 touchdowns, wide receiver 5-ish. Maybe he could be a flex at some point. I mean, getting him for $4 is great. Ignoring the defensive players, then Antonio Gibson for $1. He's the handcuff in New England. So, maybe like 500 yards. Depends on if Stevenson gets hurt. Maybe 5 touchdowns. Anyway, almost a half hour. Try to keep that short. Didn't go too much into the information. What was I talking about, and what's the point of doing Justin first? All right, so here's the thing. I said there was a lot of groupthink in this draft. And again, I talked about hero running back strategy where you take one guy to be your starting star running back, and then you kind of just like build around it. Now, there are multiple ways to do that. Your way to do that was kind of like build depth. Instead of getting a second star, you build depth. And you have good depth. Like I like McConkey, I like Coleman, I like Worthy, so they're right off the bat 3 rookie receivers. You just need one of them to hit. If one of them hits, I don't think they're going to have a Puka Nacua kind of season, but I mean that was historic. But I think if one of them hits, then you got some really good depth there. I think Gus Edwards is like a good backup-ish running back, and you have your starting lineup. But and now we're going to the bad part. So what goes along with kind of everyone having the groupthink is, I don't like your team as much as last year. I feel like the team is good. I don't feel like the team is great. I mean, I guess Neighbors is also a rookie receiver, so that's 4 rookie receivers. At a certain point, I'm kind of like, why are we taking all these receivers? Like, you even noticed coming out of the draft that you're short on running backs, and I'm kind of like flabbergasted because there were deals on running backs for quite cheap that you very easily could have like diverted some of your money. Like, let's say you want to keep Kyler Murray, yeah? And let's say you want to, $8. We could have done, I mean, just looking around, was it? Chuba Hubbard went for like $2. So he's starting till Jonathan Brooks comes back at least. Ezekiel Elliott went for $3. Jalen Wright went for $1. Jaleel McLaughlin went for $1. Rico Dalton went for like $2 to Sarah. Those are some good picks. Najee Harris went for $12. Like, Tony Pollard went for $9. So I'm kind of just like, at a certain point, if you know you need something, like, I don't know if you weren't paying attention to your team. I don't know if you were just like kind of enamored with wide receivers. But at a certain point, you kind of just gotta go get some running backs. You just gotta go do it. And the thing that I kind of learned watching you last year, Justin, and I've said this to other people, I thought your team was very good. I thought your team was a top 4, maybe top. I mean, going into the season, I thought it was the best team, but I think it was a top 4 team to end the season. But the thing was, the rub, I thought Lauren's team was not very good. Obviously, Lauren auto-drafted the back half of her team. Lauren straight auto-drafted this whole team. But for my money, if I had to take who I believe would take a team to the playoffs, I pick Lauren. Because Lauren was able to navigate that team that was highly flawed based off of purely tight ends and get into the playoffs. And you took a team with all this depth and you crashed it out. You didn't even get to the playoffs. So I would have liked you to have been a little bit more aggressive, getting, I don't know, a second running back, some good running backs. I don't know. I think you're kind of suffering from the same kind of thing as, like, I had this conversation with Brian and I have this conversation with Mac, where I both just kind of told them, just like, look, I know you want to play it really safe, and I know there are, like, good, safe players, but sometimes you got to just swing for the upside. I think you're swinging for the upside with the rookies, but you're only, like, you're not so much in your in-season management. I'm very queasy about what you're going to do with it. Because let's say, I don't know, let's say your 4 starting wide receivers turn out well, and we'll give Keon Coleman becomes, like, the number 1 in Buffalo, and he looks great, right? Like, are you actually going to do anything with that? Are you going to do anything with the 5 receivers? Are you going to trade for a star player or a star running back number 2 or something? I don't know. You haven't done it. So will you properly manage a team with depth to be able to turn that into, like, a powerhouse? And I mean, if Andre drafted like you, Andre would probably have, like, 4 or 5 championships, if we're being honest. So he's already got 2, based purely, one was a great draft, the other was just, like, a confluence of events where he just got super hot. But you've never even been to a finals, so I don't know. I really wish, I like the team. I think the team's good. I think you ought to be a top 5 team. I think you ought to be in the playoffs, but are you actually going to get there? When it's, like, week 11 and you're, like, I don't know, we'll say 6-4. All right, it's week 11, you're 6-4, and someone comes along and they offer you some good player. I don't know. We'll just say Lauren has because Lauren needs help with some of her players. Lauren offers you, like, Puka Nacua, who's having, like, a very good season. Are you actually going to make the trade for him, or are you just going to be like, no, I want to keep my depth and, like, kind of protect myself? Because if you're going to just do that, then, like, you're just going to punt on the season again. Like, it's silly. Like, history favors the bold. The point of fantasy is to win championships. I've come in second place twice. I've never won a championship in this league. It has been 11 years, and it irritates me, and it grinds at me, and I would love to win at some point. But the point is, like, I still try to be aggressive. I still try and make moves. Sometimes I overpay for things because I just got to get it done. I hope, if nothing else this season, you kind of have learned from last year that you just got to go for it. If you think you got the team, you just got to go for it. You can't just, like, oh, I have really good depth. I'm going to, like, kind of see how this goes and hope other injuries, I guess, happens to other teams, because that's not, you can't hope for other things to happen to other people. You kind of just got to make it happen for you. We talk a lot about luck in fantasy football. I like to say, other people disagree with me, but I like to say a third of it is luck, a third of it is the draft, and a third of it is in-season management. I think you have a lot of luck because you stay healthy. I think you got the draft down because you draft very well. But the in-season management portion, like, if you could even just get the 20%, you'd be like a top 4 or 5 team. So I'm hoping this season you surprise me. I'm hoping maybe you're aggressive, maybe you find something, maybe you're just like, maybe I need to move, maybe Mostert's having a good season, I'm going to package him with like Keon Coleman, who's having a good season, and I'm going to go get an upgrade at running back, whoever that might be. I don't know. Maybe trade with Brian, Stefan, Mac. But I think Mac will tell you, if you talk to him, Mac will tell you his defining moment last year was trading for A.J. Brown, and that really just made his team. One of his better moves was not trading for Tony Pollard, and being able, but he still had to be aggressive enough to give up Mostert and Brian Robinson Jr. and just being like, no, I gotta go get this guy. I think this will put my team over the top. And at some point, I hope that trade for you comes along and you make that deal. Because I know for a fact, at some point last year, sometime towards the end of last year, you had a chance to trade for Derrick Henry, and then you didn't do it. And then Derrick Henry got warned into the playoffs, and you did not get into the playoffs. So I hope you don't just sit on a bench if your bench gets really good. I hope you dump half the bench, or the whole bench, and you kind of just like, all right, let's play with smoke. We got to go for it. Especially coming out of this draft where there's so many teams that are just like very similar or very similar builds with basically the same level of player. Like, they're good teams. Like, I think I mentioned it before. I think you have a good team. I think Brian has a good team. I think Stefan has a good team. I think Leyland has a good team. I think Ryan has a good team. I think Robbie has a good team. I don't love Sarah's team, but, I mean, it's a solid team. But there's no, like I think Mac has a good team, but there's no, like, superstar team here. And the thing is, it's going to be really hard for any of us to trade with anybody because no one has any running backs to spare. So it's really going to be a lot about like injuries and everything. So you need the depth. But at some point, someone's going to make a big move and that team's going to get hot and make a run. And I hope of all of those teams I mentioned, I hope it's you. Because I mean, you've earned it. The team's good enough. You do a good job drafting. I think you just got to kind of figure out the in-season management part where you kind of just like, you know what? Maybe this player that I'm trading for isn't worth that, but I can spare the extra change and I'll just go for it. Like, I hope you're aggressive. But yeah, that's mostly what I want to go over. I think the team's good. We'll give it, I mean, last year I gave you like, what, an A-? We'll give it a B. I mean, there's not going to be, I don't know if there's any A's in this class, but we'll give it a B. It's a good team. It's got some upside. I like getting Tank Dell. I mean, I had Adams. I had Kamara. I like McConkey. I mean, I have Josh Palmer, so your team's definitely deeper than mine. I think you'll have a good team. I think you ought to be right in the midst of the playoffs. If this isn't a top 5 team, I'm going to come back at the end of the season and I'm going to be like, you screwed up somewhere. You did not do something correctly because this should definitely be in the playoffs, all right? There are no excuses now. Like, you're wasting teams. You're wasting talent. You need to be in the playoffs. Not like, oh, I had a good season. No, I don't care. I don't care if Kamara breaks his leg. You need to be in the playoffs this year. Figure it out. So last year you should have probably been in the semifinals with how good the team was. You gotta go for it, man. You just gotta go for it. It's scary. I don't like it. Maybe it's kind of risky, but at some point you just gotta go for broke. Cause I mean, there's no reason to sit on depth. Like, it's not gonna do you any good.